I took the invitation. I called my brother, who was a golfer. I said, "You got to teach me how to play golf tonight, because I got play tomorrow." He said, "What, are you crazy?" I said, "Well, teach me how to hit the ball." So I met him at a one of those golf ranges, and anyways, I went and I played golf that day. And at the dinner that night, the dealer sitting across from me was Lou Goodman, who was the Chrysler dealer. And he said, "Who's Ori Spado? I win that prize every year, and now Ori Spado won." Holy shit, I'm thinking, I won a goddamn prize. And I won because I had the highest score. I didn't know that the highest score was that you were the worst golfer. So I won golf lessons. I just thought I'd share that story with you. I want to thank you again for allowing me to be here this morning, Coach. And, Coach, you just read something, and the author who wrote that is a dear friend of mine named Nick Pileggi. And Nick Pileggi wrote Casino, Goodfellas, and several other movies. And, and in November, he's got another one coming out called Alto, and it's about Frank Costello and Vito Genovese. And Robert De Niro is playing both Frank Costello and Vito Genovese. Going to be an awesome movie that's coming out around Thanksgiving. So watch out for that movie, folks. Uh, I was born upstate New York in a town called Rome, New York. I had a great upbringing, mom, a dad, two brothers, three sisters, and we lived in a duplex home next to my grandparents and my uncle. I grew up at a different time than a lot of people. Things were a lot different. We had a great neighborhood. We communicated with our neighbors. We played with our neighbors. Didn't have to lock our doors. And none of the problems today. At the age of 18, I joined the Army and I did my 3 years honorably. Got discharged in 1966. And upon my release, I went back to Rome, New York. And I took a couple of jobs before I got with a Prudential insurance company. And with a Prudential, I loved selling insurance. I was very good at it. I was a member of the $1 Million Round Table, and I became very successful in that industry. From that, I developed the Ori agency. I began by selling credit, life, and accident health to automobile dealers on the financing of the loans that they were doing. And after getting involved in that business, I discovered all the money that a dealer could earn. And that's how I was a pioneer in the automotive after sale market. But my life took a little turn. I was also a distributor for Polyglyco Corporation, which is owned by a very dear friend of mine named Walter Bison. And Walter was having some problems, getting some death threats. And anyways, as you'll read about in my book, how I took care of the problem and I became friends with Sonny Franchise. And he and I became friends and we're friends right up until the day he died, just a couple years ago, at the age of 103. I sent Coach, and Coach, maybe you could share it with everybody there. my hometown in Rome, New York, the Rome Daily Sentinel. At one time when I was 12 years old, I was a paper boy for the Rome Daily Sentinel. And now there's an awesome article in there where they interviewed George Gallo and me. Now, George Gallo is a writer and director here in Hollywood. He wrote Midnight Run, Bad Boys, Middlemen, Comeback Trail, and countless of other movies. He's writing and directing my script, along with Nick Villanova, who won Best Picture of the Year for Green Book, which I'm sure a lot of you probably saw that. That was about Nick's father. I have an awesome team, and hopefully next year sometime, my movie, but the book that you're holding in your hands now will be coming out. Does anybody have any questions? Because I like to do a question and answer thing. Anybody want to say anything to me?
Are you married?
Are you married, Ori?
No, I'm not. I was twice, but I'm a single guy now.
How many are alive?
How many what?
Your wives.
They're both alive. My first wife, who I had my 3 children with, she and I remain good friends to this day. She lives down in Florida. I have a son who is a pool contractor, lives down there. I got a son here, and my daughter is back in Rome, New York, and she is the director of the Abraham House, which is the last stop before people pass on in this earth in their lifetime. I'm a very blessed man, and my children and we're very close.
How did you become known as the Hollywood mobster?
It all began in 1971 with a movie with Dino De Laurentiis and Ross Serp. We were filming with Anthony Quinn in it. It's called Across 110th Street. And they were filming this movie in New York. 110th Street is Harlem. And things were getting robbed off the set every day. And so they went to a friend of ours, Lou Perry. Lou Perry said, call Frank Russo. And Frank Russo and I ended up going to New York, meeting with Frank Costello. And overnight, all the robbing stopped. And from there, it just went on. The next film was in Boston. It was when they were filming the movie, The Brinks Job, with Peter Falk and John Cassavetes. And the way things were working, I mean, the people in Boston had, I think, half the city of Boston were extras in the movie, and it was costing a lot of money. And so I took care of that situation. And from there, it just grew. Word got around in Hollywood. They had problems with an actor, a director on a movie set. I handled it. I don't mention a lot of names in my book. I do mention Naomi Campbell, where Wyclef John, hip hop artist, came to me, asked me if I would help her. She was being stalked, didn't know where the stalker lived. I found out. I followed him. He lives out in Long Island, New York, and I remedied that situation. So I handled a lot of problems. A lot of people come to me, and
Ori, they want to know how you remedied it. What's the remedy?
All right, I'm going to tell you this. Okay. You gotta remember, I lived in Beverly Hills, but I had two guys from New York. Once I found where the guy lived, I had him go to his door. Once he opened the door, they went right in. And then I made them sit him down in a chair, and I spoke to him on the telephone. And I explained to him very nicely, very kind, that if he ever thought of Naomi Campbell again, I should look at those two gentlemen. I should, because they're being very nice to you today. I said, but if I hear that you do one single thing, you will see those two gentlemen once more in your lifetime. And they will be the last two faces you will see in your lifetime. Took care of it.
And any other questions?
No.
So what is your most famous encounter with another gangster, Ori?
My famous encounter with another gangster. You're going to read a book about a gentleman named Jimmy Caci, Caci.
Anybody ever read that book? Nope, nobody here.
No, but all right, Jimmy Caci was originally from Buffalo, New York, and he happened to be the underboss of the Los Angeles crime family and the boss of Palm Springs. And he and I met up out here, and we became like brothers. So I was in a situation. Now, although the FBI and the U.S. Attorney say I'm a member of La Cosa Nostra, you got to remember, I was friends with Sonny Franchise in New York, the underboss of the Colombo crime family, and Jimmy Caci, the underboss of the Los Angeles crime family. And that don't not happen very often. And I'll tell you, you should have heard some of the arguments. Sonny, you're with me, and he'd be yelling, and Jimmy Caci say, you're in California, you're with me. But Jimmy and I were very close. We did a lot of things in Las Vegas. But have I had any? Yeah, it's in my book where, when I met Sonny, it was his son that was creating the problem and doing the death threats. And his son later became an informant. And then Sonny's other son became an informant against Sonny, me, and a few others, which created our last indictment out of Brooklyn. And that's the first time in history in New York where a son wore a wire on the father. So there's a lot of interesting things here, a lot of different twists and turns. And I'm excited about George Galley. He said it'll be finished with the script in a couple months. We're talking to Warner Brothers. We don't know if we're going to go independent or go studio at this point with the movie, because we got both options available.
Do you have any experience with London, Ori?
With what?
With London in England?
London, yeah, London. I'm very well known in London. And my dear mate that I met through my friend Danny Sims. Danny Sims is a gentleman that discovered Bob Marley and owned some of his first publishing. But through him, I met Joey Pyle, who was the boss of the firm over in London. And he and I became very, very close. I've been to London several times. Through Joey, I met all the other gentlemen out there. And to this day, Joey passed away in 2007. But his son, Joey Jr., is like my third son. We're very close. And I was the guy had all the respect from all the guys in London in this country. And something had to be done here. They came to me, I took care of it. I needed something in London or other parts of the world. They took care of it for me. A lot of different things come up and the type of life that I once lived. And as Coach has heard me say, I've done a lot of good, bad.
Hey, Ori, any friends in Minnesota?
Minnesota, I don't really have any friends except for you gentlemen now. But I did a little bit, and Minnesota is a notorious city also. And I did a little research, and it became a haven for gangsters. For John Dillinger, Babyface Nelson, Roger the Terrible, Toofy, Machine Gun Kelly, Elbow Creepy Carpet, the Barker Gang, Al Capone. I mean, there was a place where they went to relax, enjoy, and you had I think it was the sheriff or the police commissioner. His name was O'Connor, and he opened the city to gangsters. And they had some rules. And the rule that caught my attention was they had to pay bribes to the police department in St. Paul, Minnesota. And that's why you had guys like Al Capone and other gangsters start coming to your city. Do you folks know that? 1930. I don't think none of us were around.
Are there still underbosses today, Ori?
Yeah. It's not what it used to be. It will never be like it was back in the old days. People ask me, Ori, when do you think things change? And I always say, with the movie The Godfather. Because in the movie The Godfather, or most movies, they make it an attractive life of a gangster. And it's nothing like that. Okay? You gotta be on your toes 24 hours a day. Not everybody makes money like Costa Nostra like they show in a movie. Very few of us. Very few of us survive to be my age. Because you gotta understand the rules, the politics of it. Okay? Gotta know when to keep your mouth shut. Keeping your mouth shut is one of the biggest and toughest things that a lot of people cannot do. And there's a lot to it. But on the other hand, we did have some perks. I never had to wait in line in nightclubs and, a lot of restaurants we never had to pay to eat, things like that. But in today's world, you leave your home, there's cameras on the streets, Everybody's got a cell phone. The FBI don't need to follow you like they did in the old days. Now they can sit in their office and they got the equipment to know exactly what you're doing 24 hours a day. So you're not going to beat, and I tell you that in my book. The FBI got more manpower, more money, and more time. In 1997, an FBI agent said, I will see the day you are chained, shackled, put on Con Air, and brought to Brooklyn. I looked at him and I laughed. 1997. In June of 2008, 11 years later, he made it a reality. I got arrested at my home in Beverly Hills. I got chained, shackled, put on Con Air, and brought to Brooklyn. Just like he said.
So Ori, one of the questions that was just asked, how many laws do you think the FBI broke to get to you?
How many? I can tell you this. They stole $500,000. They had the informants set up conspiracy. You got to understand the conspiracy chart. Now, I had conspiracy and then I had RICO conspiracy. These become charges that almost become impossible to beat. RICO was signed into law in 1971 by Richard Nixon. But at that time, J. Edgar Hoover was the head of the FBI. And he was not going to go after organized crime. You all know that. That's a matter of history. Nixon signed that with the intent to try to stop the drugs from coming in this country, which never happened, still has not happened, and will never happen. And because you just got too much of a need. But I think I got off track there, Coach.
Thank you so much, Ori. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. And
Thank you, Ori.
Thank you, everybody. Coach, God bless you, my friend.
all right, I'll give you a call a little later, Ori. Thank you.
All right. Take care now, everybody.
Take care.
I hope I did good for you, Coach.
You did awesome. Thank you so much.